Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A new private member's bill has been introduced in Ottawa, calling on the Liberal government to remove adding mental illness to the assisted dying bill. The Alberta government announced more funding to support our most vulnerable. BCN's Micah Quinn has the details. And the World Health Organization is urging all countries to come forward to reveal what they know about the origins of COVID-19. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will explain.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre discussed the Liberal government's recent legislation to delay by 1 year the expansion of assisted dying eligibility to those suffering solely from a mental illness. Poilievre says governments need to be there for Canadians who are suffering from depression. That's why he's supporting Tory MP Ed Fast's private member's bill, which calls on Ottawa to remove the expansion for mental illness.
Conservatives will go forward to turn hurt into hope, to give people back control of their lives, to support their mental health, and to overcome addiction so that they can live good, happy, decent lives, as should be the Canadian promise.
Now, just to be very clear, my bill does not in any way reverse the rest of Canada's MAID regime. It is focused on protecting the most vulnerable Canadians, namely the mentally ill, who often have no one advocating for their interests.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is calling on a public inquiry into alleged foreign interference during Canadian elections. He says that transparency and nonpartisan independence are top of mind.
Let's be very clear, though, the Conservatives don't have the goal of getting to the truth. They really made it clear their goal is just to make this into a circus, to call everyone and anyone they can. And then when confronted with the option to expand it to include more witnesses, that will actually get to the reality of political interference, particularly potentially Russia as well. We saw the Conservatives afraid of that because they're worried about expanding it to really get to the heart of the matter. And the difference between us and the Conservatives and the Liberals on this is we actually just want to see solutions. We want to see real transparency around what's going on. We want Canadians to know what's going on, and we want to provide a real path towards protecting our democracy.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's appointing a special rapporteur to independently review concerns about foreign interference in Canada. The Liberals have been under pressure to explain what the government knew about foreign interference in the 2021 election, following a report that said China attempted to interfere in that campaign to help the Liberals.
We saw the impacts of foreign interference in places like the United States and in France during their elections in 2016 and 2017. These threats evolve and continue to evolve. We took big steps to protect the integrity of our democracy. Things we did in response to the changes we saw around us, because that's what responsible leadership does.
Alberta Premier Daniel Smith says more funding will be going towards improving access to mental health supports for our province's youth. Premier Daniel Smith says if passed, Budget 2023 would invest $92 million over 3 years to provide mental health supports for our children. Smith says every young person in Alberta deserves access to supports, including treatment, to help aid in addictions recovery.
We are moving closer to this goal with the introduction of Budget 2023. This year's provincial budget includes record investments for the newly established Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction, more than $275 million in funding each year, which is an increase of almost 40% from last year and a 200% increase from what we inherited from the NDP before us. This record-breaking investment will be used to focus on key priorities, including helping children and youth improve their mental health, growing Indigenous partnerships, further increasing access to treatment and recovery supports, partnering with first responders to keep communities safe while treating mental health and addiction compassionately, and so much more.
The Alberta government also announced $330 million over 3 years for our province's social sector, which includes helping our most vulnerable. There will also be staff wage increases and funding for administration. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, some of the money will also be making its way here to Lethbridge.
This increase in funding is impacting wages for 22,000 Albertans and will allow them to continue to do the incredible work that they do without worrying as much about how they're going to feed their family and pay their own bills.
The money will go to wage increases for staff in the disability sector, homeless shelters, and those dealing with family violence. The funding announcement was made at Christopher Place in Lethbridge, and staff with the Alberta government explained what the wage increase will look like for workers in these areas.
This bumps us up to making sure that the average wage is roughly $22 and change. So it helps address that.
According to a report by the Alberta Council of Disability Services, workers in the sector have not received a pay increase since 2014. Staff from the group Alberta Disability Awareness in Action say they are quite happy with the new announcement.
Not only will $267 million over the next 3 years raise wages, the increase in funding will broaden access to services addressing rising administrative costs and cut into the high turnover rate amongst workers in our field.
Funding will also be going to the Lethbridge Shelter and Resource Centre, which has been operated by the Blood Tribe Department of Health for just over 3 months. Officials with the organization say they employ anywhere from 60 to 75 permanent and temporary staff, with 110 spaces in the shelter.
This announcement is a welcome reprieve, both for the shelter operations itself and, of course, the salary increase with all of our employees.
For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Well, it was a cold and snowy start to our work week. Angela Stewart is out in the field by the Galt Museum, braving the elements with an update for us. Angela, it appears as though we may see more flurries this week along with below seasonal values.
Yeah, some more snow is in the forecast for our region. We can expect more of the white stuff tomorrow to fall. We'll also be well below seasonal temperatures. We can expect to be in the minuses for the rest of the week. Conditions will actually start to improve this weekend. As for tonight, expect a low of -15 with some more snow in the forecast. As for how the rest of the week is looking, I'll have all those details coming up later in the show.
She is such a trooper. Thanks so much, Angela. The Better Business Bureau released its Scam Tracker Risk Report, which outlined the top 10 scams in Canada in 2022. March is also Fraud Prevention Month. Now, most of the fraud involved improvement scams, followed by cryptocurrency scams. Wes LaFortune with the Southern Alberta BBB told us why these two were so high up the list.
People have just become a lot more aware of cryptocurrency assets generally and cryptocurrency exchanges, and a little more, I think, skeptical of investing, at least being more aware that it's a very high risk investment, cryptocurrency. And the home improvement thing, I think, makes sense because in the last couple of years, people, the folks at home, we've been locked down in this pandemic off and on, and people have wanted to do home improvements, putting in some windows and maybe putting a deck on your home or improving your patio or whatever.
Yeah, the home improvement scam includes contractors who take a down payment for work that's never completed. If you feel like you've been the victim of a scam, report it to your local police right away. You can also find more information about the various scams making the rounds on their Better Business Bureau's Scam Tracker website. Each year, the Green and Yellow Group hosts an initiative called the Children's Bicycle Barbecue. Now, this year, the organization is hoping to give away 50 bikes to needy kids. The Green and Yellow Group is an organization that gives back to the community by hosting events to raise money and awareness for people who fall between the cracks of society.
Giving back to the community this way is special to us because our vision is helping bring unity in the community. And when we're able to reach out and ask people for help, not only do they get involved financially, but a lot of those donors become our volunteers, and a lot of the recipients become our volunteers as well. And so that grows exponentially each year. And our whole system and organization is actually built on sponsorship and recipients becoming volunteers because they know more than we know we're the people that are falling between the cracks of society.
The Children's Bike Giveaway will be taking place in the month of May. If you live here in southwestern Alberta, you witness firsthand the large dump of snow we received over the weekend. Vehicles could also be found in the ditches. According to the Coaldale RCMP, there was also an increase in collisions. Commander for the Coaldale Detachment, Mike Newman, says if you don't have to drive in these conditions, to stay off the roads and simply stay home.
We've had several snow events this past year, and like anyone, we get a variety of calls, a lot of collisions at intersections where it's slippery, visibility problems, and people are either hitting the ditch or other objects. So that certainly keeps us busy with responding to those types of calls. This past weekend, this was kind of an unexpected amount of snow for sure. I know that I thought we were supposed to get like maybe 1 or 2 centimeters, which turned into quite a bit more.
A convicted killer in Calgary who's facing another murder charge made an appearance in court on Monday. 48-year-old Christopher Dunlop is charged with second-degree murder and causing an indignity to a body in the death of 58-year-old Judy Mayers. Her burned remains were found in a Northeast Athletic Park on February the 16th. He had previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the 2009 death of Laura Furlan and had recently finished serving a 12-year sentence. Dunlop appeared in court via video and had the matter adjourned until April the 6th. Alberta Health Services has issued a boil water advisory for the town of Bow Island. Officials say it's due to a water main break March 3rd at the water treatment plant. The break has since been repaired, but the boil water order will remain in effect until sampling and testing can confirm that the water is safe to drink. The town says anyone in Bow Island should boil water for at least a minute prior to any consumption. With cold and flu season upon us, local naturopathic Dr. Clayton Coggino says that remedies don't have to be expensive. He says they can be found in the food that we eat.
Vitamin C is a very popular one. I think that the research on that really shows that taking it as a preventative isn't as effective, not really very effective, but taking it when you have a cold is quite effective. And then there's a lot of other supplements, a lot of other herbs out there as well that are equally beneficial for boosting the immune system. Some are antiviral, like garlic is very antiviral, and it's also increases your core temperature to help to kill the viruses as well. And so, yeah, there's a ton of options there that are very safe and very effective.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Dr. Clayton Coggino from the Well Vitality Clinic and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up after Business News. Saskatchewan is to achieve $10 a day childcare by April 1st. That is 3 years ahead of schedule for the Liberal government's national plan. Parents whose children are under the age of 6 and attend regulated childcare on a full-time basis can expect to pay almost $220 a month. The province signed on to the Liberal government's national childcare plan back in 2021, which saw Ottawa commit $1.1 billion to the province over 5 years. Manitoba, meanwhile, will achieve $10 a day childcare by April 2nd. Premier Heather Stephenson says hitting the milestone 3 years early is important for the future of Manitoba's families.
Manitoba families will pay a maximum of $10 a day based on regular full-time hours in our regulated nonprofit childcare centres for all children age 12 and under.
We are aware that we need to see more spaces created, and we're going to continue to work and encourage Manitoba to create those, work with municipalities to do it, but also make sure that those spaces are where they need to be across the country. More spaces in rural and Indigenous communities. More spaces that are in French for the Francophone communities. Protections of official language minorities are extraordinarily important.
The World Health Organization is urging all countries to reveal what they know about the origins of COVID-19 after claims from the U.S. government agencies that a lab in China leaked the virus was denied by Beijing. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says the man who was the face of healthcare during the pandemic in the U.S., Dr. Anthony Fauci, has a lot to answer for.
It looks as though Anthony Fauci allegedly canceled a lot of these reports, a lot of these investigations, and he asked for certain narratives to be written up. We see the same thing from the World Health Organization. We saw the same thing from so many different groups, places of work, schools, places of worship. Athletes being denied access to the game because they weren't vaccinated, and then, not being able to question. That is what was so horrific about that time, and now so many people being exonerated because of that, but so many lives lost senselessly because we weren't able to get to the bottom of this.
Make sure you catch the full interview with our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari coming up in the second half of our program. Farmers in the Netherlands are continuing countrywide protests following the government's push to cut down on its emission of nitrogen oxide and ammonia by 50% by the year 2030. The decision has resulted in thousands of farmers bringing their farm equipment, including many tractors, into the cities, creating major traffic jams. Farmers are also concerned that their government may be forcing the purchase of farms in support of the new EU agricultural targets. There's a lot of concern over the Trudeau government's Bill C-11, and now they're proposing controlling what content we see online. There's an author who wrote a book on how governments are using the power of isolation to control large groups in society. Stella Morabito wrote a book called The Weaponization of Loneliness. She says it begins with governments labeling people, which can cause many to feel ostracized.
You will find throughout modern history, but especially in the, I say the United States, North America, in the past 20, 30, 40 years, the decades where political correctness has really gotten a hold, that demonization and demonization campaigns are absolutely central to getting people to shut up about what they believe. Anti-vaxxer is just one of, you could probably think of 100 different terms, and we've got for all different agendas that they're trying to push through. Bigot, hater, now white supremacist, conspiracy theorist is another one, a big one. You got the different quote phobias, you're transphobic. The list just goes on and on. Now we've got election denier, there's a whole series of deniers. Yeah. It's all smear words meant to trigger that fear of being ostracized.
Make sure you watch the full interview with author Stella Morabito and Return to Reason host David Craig on the RTR website or by checking out the Return to Reason YouTube channel. Well, we saw a few more centimeters of the white stuff today across much of southwestern Alberta, and we're not out of the woods just yet when it comes to flurries. A complete look at the weather picture is coming up. Like many of my neighbors, I was out shoveling snow around 7 o'clock this morning, but fortunately, it was the light, fluffy stuff, so it wasn't too heavy. Angela Stewart is out in the field, braving the elements by the Galt Museum, and has all of the weather details for us. Angela, there's a chance of more snow again tonight and into Tuesday?
Yeah, Hal, that's right. More snow is in the forecast. We can expect about a 30% chance of it for Tuesday. More snow is expected, as I mentioned, with some light winds. That wind chill reaching about -21 in the morning. Wednesday, expect fairly cloudy conditions throughout the day, but not before more snow in the evening. We'll be reaching a high of -6 for the day. Thursday, looking pretty gloomy all day, -7 the high and cloudy conditions. That's the same picture for Friday, cloudy conditions and -7, more snow in the forecast for the evening. Improving on Saturday, -1 and a mix of sun and cloud. 0 the high on Sunday and a mix of sun and cloud. 4 degrees is the average high for this time of year, so we are below that average. -8 is the average low. 17 degrees was the highest temperature recorded back on this day in 1987. -37 was the lowest temperature back in 1951. The sun rose at 7:05 and set at 6:21, giving us 11 hours and 16 minutes of daylight today. Fairly nice conditions out on the coast for Tuesday, 8 degrees the high in Victoria. Moving into the lower mainland in Vancouver, 9 the high with some rain in the forecast, but those showers should taper off in the afternoon. There's a chance of snow in Calgary, the wind chill in the morning, making things feel like -22, -6 the high for Tuesday. -5 in Edmonton, a chance of snow, also looking to be about a 30% chance of it. For the rest of the prairies, Saskatoon under a mainly cloudy sky for Tuesday. The temperature steady near -12 for the day. The wind chill near -29 in the morning, so make sure to bundle up on your morning commute. That's the same for Regina, -13, and snow is in the forecast. The wind chill near -27. Winnipeg shaping up nicely for tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud and -12. They'll also be getting some snow for the remainder of the week, so if you are in that region, tomorrow would be a nice day to get outside and enjoy that sunshine. Toronto, 1 degree the high and lots of sunshine there. -12 the wind chill there in the morning. Ottawa will be getting some snow and a few flurries, -4 the expected high. Montreal, a chance of snow and -3 for the day. The wind chill near -10, so overall not too cold there. Fredericton, 4 the high and some rain or even snow is in the forecast. Overall pretty soggy conditions expected there tomorrow though. Halifax, 2 degrees the expected high and a chance of snow along with some light winds. Charlottetown, a chance of snow reaching a high of 0 for Tuesday. Snow and maybe even some rain is expected for St. John's, reaching a high of 2 degrees for the day. And that's a look at your full weather forecast from here in Lethbridge.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
Canadian travelers are facing increased airport fees after the pandemic boosted the debt of domestic airports by a combined $3.2 billion. That's according to the credit rating agency DBRS Morningstar, which says the airport improvement fee at Pearson International Airport in Mississauga will go up by $5 for departing passengers and by $4 for connecting passengers. It says airports are facing rising operating costs and capital project expenditures due to inflation. Cargojet says its fourth quarter profit plunged from $102 million to just $2.6 million. The air cargo company says it earned a profit of 90 cents per share on an adjusted basis. That is down from $2.48 per share a year earlier. Company officials said, however, the revenue was up 10% to $267 million. The president and CEO of Canadian North says disruptions from the pandemic led many workers to retire, and it's becoming less attractive to become a pilot. Michael Rodniuk says changes to aviation regulations are also restricting the amount of time crew members can be on the job. Northern Air operators say a Canada-wide pilot shortage and other challenges are making it difficult to keep up with demand. Air North president and CEO Joe Sparling says Northern operators will have to become more aggressive at recruiting and retaining staff, which he says includes encouraging Northern youth to consider a career in the field. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 66 points on the day to finish at 20,514. The Dow was up 40 points to 33,431. The S&P 500 was up 2 points on the day to 4,048. And the Nasdaq was down 13 points to 11,675. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 81 cents to $80.49 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was down 41 cents to $2.60 U.S. Gold was up 3 cents to $18.46.89 U.S. an ounce, and silver was even on the day at $21.05 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.75 per bushel, barley's at $9.08, canola's at $18.20, and corn is at $10.80 per bushel. Live cattle April contract was up 68 cents to $166.10. Feeder cattle March contract was up $2.08 to $192.08, and lean hogs April contract was down $1.08 to $83.48. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.46 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, the Alberta government announced that it is partnering with CASA Mental Health to expand mental health supports for our province's youth. Premier Daniel Smith says if passed, Budget 2023 would invest $92 million over 3 years to provide mental health supports for kids and youth. It would include funding for 2 new inpatient CASA house sites in Calgary and Fort McMurray, along with the rollout of new mental health classrooms across Alberta. School advocates are warning of satanic after-school clubs that are forming across North America. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will share the chilling details with us in just a moment. If you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you. There are reports that the Iranian regime is working out deals with Russia to deliver uranium as part of the Islamic Republic's ongoing weapons development program. Now, to talk about this frightening detail in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, this is a huge setback to the ongoing negotiations to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear agreement.
Right, but this is not an argument in favor of the deal. This only illustrates what the regime is capable of doing. Meaning, if you really had an Iran regime that was looking to step away from its nuclear program to prove to the world that it will not be seeking a nuclear program destruction of its enemies, the United States and Israel, to continue pouring billions of dollars into terrorism, to continue its heinous crimes on its citizens back at home. Well, it's failing in all counts. So when you look at this deal that they have struck with the Russians, it only proves that this is their journey. This is the way in which they're working. They weren't forced into Russia's lap because of the Trump pulling out of the JCPOA or Biden's administration's failure to get back into a new JCPOA. It only proves that this is the behavior of Iran's regime. So now they have struck a deal with Russia. This is exactly what we were fearful of happening. Russia, China, Iran's regime, perhaps North Korea will join in the mix in some capacity. They are already selling weapons parts to Russia. Venezuela, you can add to the list. So all the bad actors on the globe making nice with one another, cutting deals because they are limited in terms of trade partners and limited in terms of who they can engage with. So Russia will now be sending uranium to Tehran as part of this deal. This is what the latest report alleges. And we know that Iran is selling its drones and other military equipment perhaps to Russia that has already been used in Ukraine. So this seems like a very reciprocal relationship, and it's moving in the direction of a lot of weaponry being used in that part of the world.
Now, according to a watchdog group, Iran could potentially produce enough weapons-grade material to power a nuclear bomb in just 12 days. And the report also suggests that Iran could produce another 4 bombs within a month's time.
Right. So, there's so many reports coming out right now. One says 9 days, one says 12 days, one says 1 month, and the number of weapons. I mean, it looks as though they either have the bomb already, they're very close to having it, or they will have it very soon. And again, what is the global community? When I say that, it's the United States and the Western nations as a community. What do they think about these reports? I mean, what are we doing about them? I mean, when you have the European Union twiddling its thumbs and deciding whether or not to put the Revolutionary Guard, that's the paramilitary arm of Iran's regime, on the terror list, and here you have reports of them actually having or being very close to having nuclear weapons capability. I mean, there's some sort of disconnect here, right? So either the Western world is not taking these reports seriously enough, or they don't mind Iran having a nuclear weapon, or they're just letting them buy out the time and play out the clock as Iran's regime is doing so well. So it just doesn't add up. Of course, how the reports that you're pointing to are extremely worrisome in the sense that Iran's regime not only is very close to having a nuclear weapon, they want to have the nuclear weapon, they are isolated from the world, they're flexing their muscles, and then the rest is really up to our imaginations as to what can happen.
And obviously right now the revolution continues in Iran, but Lisa, now we're hearing reports that dozens of Iranian schoolgirls were hospitalized in what the government calls a series of mysterious suspected poisonings.
Yes, so now they're going after these young girls. This is horrific. There were a decent number of media reports in the mainstream media about this, thankfully, a little too late because this happened a few days back. And we're still not hearing anything from, again, the powers that be, meaning what sort of repercussion will this have when these young girls are being poisoned? Of course, this being this symbolic, slap on the wrist and punishment for these girls because they are, again, partaking in protests, kind of carrying on this revolution for over 5 months now. So these young girls are the absolute symbol of this revolution. This revolution it's not just a feminist movement, of course. It's across Iran, all people of all ages saying enough is enough. They're asking for regime change. But of course, the symbol of this movement being the 22-year-old girl, Mahsa Amini, who was beaten to death because she was wearing improper Islamic headscarf and died in custody after her beating. So, of course, that being the symbol of this, the women of Iran leading the charge, being the symbol and icons of this revolution. So the regime targeting them and poisoning them is no surprise. But again, where are the consequences? Where's the international community? Where are the women? Where's the Me Too movement? Where are the Women's March participants and leaders? Where are they? And why aren't they speaking out about these young women being poisoned merely for speaking out? These are young school-aged girls.
Lisa, according to a report by NGO Monitor, a Palestinian nonprofit group received $78,000 from the U.S. Agency for International Development, despite ties to terror groups. That has to be quite concerning.
Yes, this is U.S. aid. These are our tax dollars at work, right? Imagine American people, and I'm sure Canadians as well, hardworking people, being taxed on what they work for, and then giving that money to groups that are supporting terrorism. It happens all the time. I know, when it does happen, we point it out and say, why aren't we more careful about this? This was a Palestinian NGO. This is a nonprofit organization. So many of these groups kind of mask themselves as humanitarian groups, but then are obviously very either sympathetic to or funding groups that are involved in terrorism. This is exactly one of those cases. The Trump administration was very keen on pointing out a lot of the money that was going towards these Palestinian groups and then was being used for the pay to slay programs, that is giving money to families of suicide bombers and others who are considered martyrs in the Palestinian world. He stopped a lot of that, but the Biden administration reinstated a lot of that aid. U.S. aid, of course, giving money to a lot of these different organizations, but not doing the vetting that needs to be done. And we hope that these kinds of reports and exposés do shine a light on these groups and really underscore the importance of vetting them before giving out that money.
A former American soldier was sentenced to 45 years in prison last week for planning a jihadist attack on his fellow soldiers in his army unit. Now, Lisa, a release from the Justice Department says 24-year-old Ethan Meltzer from Kentucky pleaded guilty to trying to murder U.S. service members.
Yeah, an inside job. It's horrific. But, this goes back to the see something, say something kind of age. I think we've stepped away from that a bit in terms of being politically correct and not calling anybody out and being more quote unquote tolerant. If you see something different or, behavioral changes, you want people to report that and see that. This could have been a horrific incident inside the military. Imagine sending your young son, daughter off to fight for the country and then having something like this happen from the inside. Look, this can be blamed on psychological issues or worse, kind of sabotage from the inside or infiltration in some cases. But again, very important that this was foiled, that it was caught, and he's made an example of, so that they take a closer look at vetting and looking at different incidents within the military.
Social media can be toxic at the best of times. Well, now a recent report found that a high-profile United Nations human rights official's social media account was allegedly full of anti-Semitic posts. So let me ask you something. How can the UN remain objective when it comes to dealing with the Israel-Palestine conflict when we hear stories like this?
Yeah, the UN has never been unbiased towards Israel. We know that, right? Because we see them putting countries like Saudi Arabia and Cuba and Iran's regime at the helm of women's rights organizations. I mean, talk about opposite day at the UN. That's every day at the UN. And then, coming up with these reports and investigations on Israel and their human rights. And, when you look at a country like Israel, the only democratic country in the Middle East that has a gay pride parade every year and more women in universities than men. We've had women prime ministers, women in the parliament, women treated beyond equally in their government. So it's crazy to think that every day at the UN, this truth about a nation like Israel is kind of brushed away. And, all of these so-called human rights abuses that are trumped up charges against Israel are brought to the forefront when countries like, again, Saudi Arabia and Iran's regime and Syria and Cuba, all of those countries are not only forgiven, but honored and given such a platform to come spew their garbage. So it's not any surprise that this individual was working for the Assistant Secretary of Humanitarian group within the UN, and of course his social media being full of awful, horrific things about Israel and about the Jews. We live in a day and age, this is crazy how when you see so much of this Jew hatred, we live in a day and age where no hatred is tolerated. Nothing negative is tolerated. You know, if you talk about someone's weight, it's called fat shaming. If you talk about the way someone looks, I mean, it's sexist. If you can't say anything negative about anybody, and we're trying to promote that for our children, for everyone in the workplace, etc. And yet you see such a professional spewing so much hatred. I mean, regardless of which group it's targeting, why so much hatred when you're working at a place like the United Nations or anywhere else in any professional capacity? We're seeing teachers that are anti-Semitic, professors that are anti-Semitic. We're seeing CEOs, and of course now in this case at the UN, which was highlighted at the foreign desk. And I thank you, Hal, for bringing attention to it. So, I mean, there has to be more attention paid to all forms of hatred, but specifically anti-Semitism, which is on the rise.
What our parents used to tell us as well: if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Lisa, the World Health Organization is urging all countries to reveal what they know about the origins of COVID-19 after claims from the U.S. government agencies that a Chinese lab leak was behind the disease, and they were denied by Beijing.
It only took 3 years, Hal. It only took 3 years to actually ask for transparency. I mean, there was a report this week we had at the foreign desk where it looks as though Anthony Fauci allegedly canceled a lot of these reports, a lot of these investigations, and he asked for certain narratives to be written up. We see the same thing from the World Health Organization. We saw the same thing from so many different groups, places of work, schools, places of worship. Athletes being denied access to the game because they weren't vaccinated, and then, not being able to question. That is what was so horrific about that time. And now so many people being exonerated because of that, but so many lives lost senselessly because we weren't able to get to the bottom of this, to get to the bottom of what medications may work, to get to the bottom of what this vaccine is, what harmful effects it has, and really where this virus came from. There are people that were working in the U.S. government, actual elected officials who were defending China's government over Donald Trump. I mean, when you get to a place where, regardless of your political beliefs, you cannot defend your country, regardless of who is at the helm. You cannot defend your country over an enemy state. In that case, it's an enemy state. They're trying to purposely leak viruses and engage in biowarfare. We have to look at them and ask for this transparency and ask for the truth. And so many people did it. Not only did they not, they helped in covering it up. And I'm talking about social media companies and the government and groups like the World Health Organization, individuals like Anthony Fauci. And that's where we are at today, 3 years later.
Wow. Some of the water cooler chat right here at the television station is about the Jesus Revolution, how well the movie's doing right now. There are revivals taking place, Asbury, Kentucky, and 22 other post-secondary campuses across the United States. But now, Lisa, school advocates across the U.S. are warning about satanic after-school clubs that are apparently forming. Many are concerned about the impact the Satanic Temple's efforts will have on our young people and their view of faith. How could school boards even allow this to happen?
This is crazy, right, Hal? Because you're living in a time where we are so concerned as parents of children of all ages, whether they're in preschool or in college. We're all concerned about the indoctrination at school. And we all know that, particularly at public schools, how that really that separation of church and state has never been as separated. Meaning, they question. If you say "God bless you" to somebody, they look at you and say, "Ah, it's interesting that you invoked God." I just sneezed, right? So we're living in a time where all aspects of that Judeo-Christian culture that was so much a part of Western culture has really been extracted from our daily lives, particularly at schools and in public places. Now imagine in lieu of that, now they are bringing in this satanic influence. When children are not exposed to church or synagogue or mosque or whatever you worship, and then all of a sudden their blank canvases are exposed to this satanic temple, maybe this is what they will pick up, right? It's unfair to say we're going to strip them of the culture of our world, which is, again, this Judeo-Christian these underpinnings. It's our history. It's in fact our history, and to now give them, the alternative without having both sides. That's what I think is very much unfair, because you can advocate for freedom of speech and learning different things, and children should be exposed to different things. But really, this is the issue many of us have with a lot of the, the sex ed at different ages. I mean, you really have to meet children at where they're at and what they're ready for. So it's unfair to not teach, certain things, and then to, again, allow the children to be exposed to so much of this without the parents knowing in many cases, Hal. I think a lot of parents have that issue. I mean, if parents had a choice to be able to prepare their children, and again, a lot of parents not having that time, or not having the time with their children, or not knowing what's going on at school, not having access to that curriculum or that information, they won't be able to combat it at home. So this is what we've been covering a lot of this education stuff at the Foreign Desk. We do national security, and we feel like, advocating for our children is part of our national security right now. And this, of course, being a very important story and part of that.
Political reporter and foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us today from Los Angeles, California.
My pleasure. Thank you.
With the health struggles we've been seeing around the globe, more and more people are trying to find ways to strengthen their immune system. Our guest today is Dr. Clayton Kogana, who is a neuropathic doctor in Lethbridge with Well Vitality Health Clinic. He's also done some training in conventional medicine with a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science, Kinesiology, and doing 3 years of research on radiation and cancer at the University of Lethbridge. So great to have you on once again, Dr. Kogana. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Great. Okay, so with all the health challenges that we're seeing these days, it seems that there's a big spike in people who want to build up their immune system in order to stay healthy. Of course, we're seeing this post-COVID. Now it's the new year as well, so people got those resolutions going. So, and there is also a lot of talk that vitamin D is a good immunity builder. So tell us about vitamin D.
So it's been shown vitamin D, it's a fat-soluble vitamin. Our bodies produce it through our skin with sunlight. Most Canadians don't get enough of it. It has an important role in the immune system. Its role actually is not only immunity itself. Most people think that it is only for your mood and immune system, which are big parts. It increases your body's ability to produce, activate white blood cells and different cytokines. So taking it reduces the severity and duration of colds. And so therefore it's good. We also recommend not taking too much of it, because what a lot of people don't realize is that its main, probably more so important function is calcium. It actually allows calcium to better be absorbed through your digestive tract, and also build bones stronger and healthier. And so you don't want to take too much of it, because it could actually increase your internal calcium too much. And over the years, a lot of people have been taking massive doses of it because they see it as boosting their immune system, etc. But now that everyone's kind of on that train of taking it, we also want to heed a little bit of caution with not overdoing it.
Yeah, good advice there. What are some other supplements that are known to build the immunity?
Oh, well, there's a lot of them. Like astragalus can help to increase white blood cell production. N-acetylcysteine is inherently antiviral, as are beta-glucans, which come from mushrooms. Vitamin C is a very popular one. I think that the research on that really shows that taking it as a preventative isn't as effective, not really very effective, but taking it when you have a cold is quite effective. And then there's a lot of other supplements, a lot of other herbs out there as well that are equally beneficial for boosting the immune system. Some are antiviral, like garlic is very antiviral, and it's also increases your core temperature to help to kill the viruses as well. And so, yeah, there's a ton of options there that are very safe and very effective.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we've heard about a ton of these herbs that are antiviral in nature, so garlic being one. If we wanted to find out more information on that, can we find it out in your shop there in Well Vitality?
Yeah, you can always book in with any naturopathic doctor. We're very educated in both conventional and alternative medicine to try and just help provide good evidence-based treatments for these things, beyond just taking your regular cold medication. But yeah, it's one of those things where you don't want sometimes just to start taking a bunch of supplements because you don't really know how they're potentially going to interact with your medications, et cetera.
So, Dr. Kogana, your clinic actually offers ozone therapy. So maybe tell us about this. What is ozone? What does it do for our health?
So ozone is it's a gas, O3, so it's heavier than oxygen, which is O2. It's actually a fantastic treatment. Most people haven't heard of it. It has extremely good research to back it up as well. It itself is antimicrobial, so it is active against both viruses, bacteria, parasites, etc. But it also increases your cytokines, which are chemical signals in your body that fight against and activate when you're sick.
Wow.
So it multiplies your ability to fight against the infection as well as helps to kill the infection at the same time. And it also donates an oxygen into your bloodstream, which can help with energy production and mitochondrial function. So its role is sort of quite complex, but it has excellent research to back it up as an antiviral and just antimicrobial in general for people that are quite chronically ill. It's a wonderful treatment.
Yeah, it sounds like a magical treatment or something.
Yeah, it seems it's something that most people haven't heard of, yet it has just an astronomically large amount of research articles proving how effective it can be against viruses. It's quite remarkable, actually, and I encourage patients to always look it up as well.
Yeah, is it more for somebody who's kind of prone to certain illnesses, or like if you're just sick, can you go in and get the therapy done?
Yeah, there's different IVs that we can do for boosting immune systems and helping with that. But definitely it's something to at least be aware of as a potential treatment option that you could talk to your naturopathic doctor about, for sure.
Great. Okay, so switching gears here, how much of a role does stress and anxiety play when it comes to our immune system?
It's extremely important. It actually lowers a lot of different white blood cells in your body when you're chronically stressed out. And it also spikes up a hormone in your body, a very important hormone, a stress hormone called cortisol. And your cortisol allows you to handle and deal with stress. And when it's elevated, it severely limits your immune system and your cytokine production. And so stress and anxiety, it's really important to manage that. Otherwise, people will get a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get ill when you're stressed out due to those hormone changes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of old advice there. Reduce your stress. So, I mean, with that said, what are some things that we can do to reduce stress?
Well, there's a lot of different activities that you can do to reduce stress: yoga, meditation, exercise, etc. But I think, in my practice anyway, what I really like to tell my patients is most people have to take something off of their plate. They're doing too much. People these days, everybody is doing too much. We have too much on the go. We've said yes, and we have to learn to say no. And I think that it's a very important thing, and it's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to, say no to things so that they have better balance in their life. And I think that that's a lot of times where a lot of people's stress are coming from. We can't change and fix all of our stress, but we can definitely help to decrease it by just sort of stepping back and looking at things and, creating a better balance.
Yeah, I wish there was that magic pill that we could just take and all our stress is eliminated. That would be wonderful.
That's right. I
Yeah.
know.
So I mean, we've
It
all,
doesn't always happen that
yeah,
way.
we've all heard about like exercise and proper rest, important for immunity. But how important is it? How much can exercise actually improve your immune system as well as rest?
Well, it's good. I mean, exercise can help flush out bacteria and viruses from your lungs. It also helps to, increase your blood flow and helps to increase and stimulate white blood cell production. So that's a good thing. On the other hand, vigorous exercise too frequently also can be a stressor on your system, and it can actually activate your cortisol production and lower your immune system. And so it is a double-edged sword, exercise. And I think really the point of that is you just have to listen to your body. If you're feeling really tired and you need some sleep, rest. Don't push it too much, especially during the winter months where these viruses are just getting, to come back, and they're quite severe. And you don't want to overdo it. But exercise in general is extremely good for us.
What about people who suffer from insomnia? I would imagine that must lower their immune system. Is there any help for that type of condition?
Yeah, so sleep is extremely important, because if you're not sleeping, it is actually innately quite a very large stress on your body. And in turn, it will affect your white blood cell production and your cortisol production, and it makes you way more prone to getting ill. And so sleep itself, being as important it is to immune system, is also very difficult for us to treat, because there's a lot of different factors that go into why someone might not be sleeping. And unfortunately, there aren't many tests to run to figure it out. Some, like, sleep studies, et cetera, can look at certain issues, but if the issue may be potentially stress related or chemical in nature, decreased melatonin secretion, decreased GABA secretion, elevated stress, it is kind of a guessing game when it comes to supplementation or treatment for sleep. And so the way that I kind of approach it in my practice is that I will, be very forward and upfront with that with patients, but also there's, and then we just usually try different methods, try different things based on what we think the cause is. Do we try a very strong passion flower root extract to calm them down, or maybe melatonin if they've been traveling or they're on shift work or something like that. There's a lot of different things that you can try for sleep that will absolutely help the immune system, but it will vary based on the person. Completely vary based on the person.
Wow. Okay, so we talked about ozone therapy. There's also IV, different types of IV therapy used to boost immunity. So, some of us have had IV administered in the hospital, but now many natural health clinics are using this IV therapy to help with immunity. So maybe can you explain how this works?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing magical, but what it is we're basically just, we're bypassing a couple systems. The first system would be the digestive tract. Now, a lot of people come to us also with digestive issues, so maybe they're not absorbing or assimilating things as well as they could be. And then beyond absorption, it also bypasses what we call the first pass of the liver. So usually when you take something orally, it goes through your digestive tract and you absorb it. Then it goes into your bloodstream and then to your liver first. And your liver sorts through everything and excretes most of it if it thinks it's excessive. So when we're trying to treat something where you're ill or sick and you're trying to take extra vitamin C or maybe extra B vitamins to help to boost your energy and help to fight against the virus, your body doesn't always absorb what you think you're taking. And so an IV of these things, intravenous, goes directly into your bloodstream, and it goes directly to all the cells in your body, and you absorb 100% of those things. So we can dose things quite a lot higher and ensure that there's no absorption issues either. And so it is it tends to be quite a significantly stronger therapy when it comes to treatment compared to just oral supplements alone. Most patients have already tried a lot of oral supplements by the time they come to see naturopathic doctors, and they're kind of wondering why it's not working. And a lot of times intravenous can kind of get them over the hump and get them back in shape faster.
That's really fascinating. What kind of success rate do you have with patients who have had this IV therapy?
Extremely high. We do it when it's indicated, and in my practice, especially, I really love testing to make sure we're not missing anything. So I do, medically accredited labs here privately, just so that we test things in depth. When it's indicated, we do IVs, and it's certainly not indicated in everybody, but when it is, we do them, and the success rate is very high because how we kind of prep before we consider doing the IVs.
Mm-hmm. You'd mentioned that a lot of patients have those absorption issues. How would a patient know that this is an issue that they're having? Or is this kind of like the last draw? Yeah.
Well, absorption issues really often go hand in hand with gastrointestinal issues or digestive tract issues. So not always. I mean, some patients may be losing hair or have brittle nails, or maybe they're fatigued and they don't know why. Just because perhaps they're very used to their digestive issues, they don't really know. But usually when people are kind of coming in, they know that something's wrong, in which case then we can check and we can test things very thoroughly based on the area of the digestive tract that they're coming in with symptoms, whether it be stomach, whether it be small intestine, or whether it be large intestine. There's fantastic tests to figure out, is it an issue and where is the issue? And then also we know exactly how to treat it.
That is just absolutely fascinating, and I could talk at length about this with you, but it looks like we are getting close to being out of time. So thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Dr. Clayton Kogana is a naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge with Well Vitality Health Clinic. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.